Hi, I'm Catherine Dean, and I manage the cake shop at Dorothy Lane Markets.
And I'm Danny Lane, sugar artist and lead trainer for Harp's Food Stores. In this series, we're going to show you some professional techniques for decorating cakes.
And introduce some tools you'll be using.
Let's begin with base icing and what you'll need to get started.
There are 5 basic tools for base icing: quick icing tips, spatulas, smoothers, combs, and a turntable. Quick icing tips are much bigger than other tips and give you a head start to distributing icing evenly. Then spatulas and smoothers help finish the job. Combs add texture to the icing for visual appeal and create ridges that help prevent buildup of icing in between layers. Finally, turntables help with efficiency and consistency throughout the decorating process. For right-handed decorators, use your right hand to hold tools and your left hand to rotate the turntable. Left-handed decorators just do the opposite.
When selecting a size of a drum for your cake, you want to allow at least 1 to 2 inches larger than your cake. We have a 10-inch here. We've got an 8-inch cake we're going to decorate on this. You want to allow for the extra room so you can get your borders and your icing on without it coming to the edge where it can be handled. If you're doing a fancier, more tiered cake, you want the heavier one to hold it up. If you're doing a thinner, more birthday style or dessert style cake, this is fine here. For what we're doing today, we're going to use the thicker 10-inch drum. Before we begin base icing, we need to trim up any ragged or unstraight edges to begin prepping our cake for filling and icing. You may have plastic on your layers, you may have paper on it. Begin by removing the paper. Don't put it directly on the counter. She's got hers on a cutting board to keep it on a clean surface as she's trimming it. She's going to turn her cake on the side and just remove the rounded part from the top. This allows the cakes to sit flat next to each other with the filling in the middle and not have an indentation in it. To begin filling, we want to place our knife level across the side, place hand firmly on top, keeping an eye on both ends to make sure you're cutting level all the way across. Never put your hand on the end of the cake where the knife will come out. Remove your top layer. Set it aside onto a clean board or surface, never onto the counter. We then want to pipe a skim coating of icing if you're using fresh fruit filling to keep it from soaking in the cake too much. If you're using bag style or bucket style filling, you can omit this step. And this doesn't need to be heavy, just a thin coat. This acts as a barrier between the fruit and the cake. Then we want to pipe a border just right at the edge all the way around. This acts as a barrier to keep your fruit inside the cake. Next, we're going to pipe a thin layer of our fruit in here. Just spread it around to distribute it evenly. Just kind of level it up with that edge. Pull your board out and place your top back on. If you're not doing a filling in the middle, you're always going to have to put icing in between the middle to stick the 2 layers together. So go ahead and put no more probably than a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch thick layer of buttercream in the middle or whipped icing, whichever you're using. Just spread it around to the edge and then you're going to place your next layer on. A lot of times people will place the 2 cut sides together and then they end up with a sharper, cleaner edge on the top. This makes it straighter when you're icing it and a cleaner edge. And now you're ready to begin base icing. Before we do that, we need to brush any crumbs off of our board to make sure these don't get incorporated into our icing. So if you've got a damp, clean, lint-free towel, you can do that and just wipe off your board. In this step, we're going to use what's called a quick icer. This will put an even coat of icing on here. Start at the corner. Keep consistent pressure as you move down the side. Let off pressure. Same step around the other side. Keeping your bag at about a 45-degree angle is also helpful. So once you've got it on all 4 sides, then you're going to cover the top. Just start at the edge, consistent pressure, let off. Usually you can get about 4 strips of icing across the top of a standard 9x13. Then we're going to take a spatula, kind of an overhand fashion, kind of close up some of these seams, make sure that the icing is stuck to the cake. You're not really removing any, you're just spreading it around. You don't want to reveal the cake underneath. If you've got a place that looks thin, you can get into the bucket and get a little bit more on your spatula to kind of add to it. Then we move to the top, and let's just kind of close up these seams. Make sure our corners stay level. Be careful not to round off the edges or corners in this step.
Now to base ice your 8-inch round, first, make sure there is no crumbs left around the edges of the board. We're just going to use a spatula, and we're just going to put a large scoop of icing on top. And this is more for a skilled icer. Work your way from the middle out. You don't want to do much. You don't want the icing to fall off the sides of the cake. Just go around in the circle, make sure, push it off to the edges. Don't push too hard because it will fall and then go onto the board. It is important how you place your spatula because you don't want to have too much icing at the bottom. But try to keep the crumbs out of your icing. But if you need to, just keep adding to the sides and don't scrape too hard because you're going to bring up those crumbs. So just keep working around the cake till you get to where you started. Just go around. And if you're worried about the bottom and you see some of your cake show through, don't worry about the bottom, but you want to worry about the middle layer and the top a little bit. The bottom will have the borders, so not a big deal. This may take a little time, but this is a little bit difficult, more than the quick icers you may use.
Now at this point we can take a comb and begin combing. About a 45-degree angle on your comb. You are going to dig in with a little bit of pressure, but not enough to reveal the cake. If you need to make 2 or 3 passes to get it level, that's okay. Then start the next side. Just clip in that corner, but don't round it off, because you're going to pull this one out, and then you catch it the next time when you do the other corner to square it off. Be sure to wipe off the excess onto your bucket or icing bowl, whatever you're using to keep from dragging it back on the cake. Once you've got all 4 sides smooth like you'd like, then you can begin with a spatula. We don't want to round off the edges. We simply want to pull over towards the center, scraping off excess onto the bucket. Turn your table around as you work each side. Being careful in this step too not to pull too much to the center, because what happens then, your cake isn't level, it's kind of humped up in the center. So come all the way across if you need to without coming off the edge. In this step I'm going to use a smoother that is basically like a spatula, only wider. Just gently scraping. At this point I'm not really removing much. I'm just scraping, trying to level it out, smooth it up. Usually works best to go long ways on these, and you don't have to worry about getting too close to the edge unless you're doing a design that isn't going to have a border on it. Then you're going to have to pay particular attention to the trim on the cake. You may also take your clean, damp towel and wipe off your smoother. This facilitates in getting it smooth as well by keeping it clean with nothing on it. Okay, and at this point, we're going to take our spatula and just wipe off any excess icing we have on our board. And then take a wet, damp towel, wipe off your board. You want to do this in advance of your borders. This way, when you put the border on, you're not messing it up with a towel. And there you have it, a 1/4 sheet base iced.
There's many different scrapers, smoothers you want to use. This one is a metal one. You want to do this all in one swipe. So we're going to start off, slight pressure. You don't want to take off your cake or get any crumbs. Don't let your turntable stop, and scrape. You kind of want to look to see if it looks good. If it doesn't, start over again. Don't scrape too hard. If you think that, there's a spot that you see some cake in there, add a little bit of icing, start over. The end result is to make it look nice and smooth. You don't want to see that jagged stuff. So at the top, start from the outside and pull in slightly, and then scrape it off to your bucket. Again, keep doing this technique until all your top looks smooth. Again, light pressure. And you just pull it all in until you get what you're looking for, which is a smooth top. And you can step back, look at it, see if there's any imperfections, and fix what you need to. We're gonna fix the bottom of the board, so take your smoother and just scrape off any excess icing here. And then to make it look even cleaner, take your damp towel and wipe it down a little bit so that there's no more icing left on the board. You don't have to get too close because your border, again, will cover up any of that. And there you go. That's how to ice an 8-inch round.
Now we've finished base icing a 1/4 sheet and 8-inch round.
Now we're ready to start decorating.